Good morning and welcome to this, the 10th meeting of 2013 of the European and External Relations Committee. Can I make the usual request that mobile phones and electronic devices are switched off? Moving swiftly to agenda item 1, which is a decision to take business in private and to seek your agreement to take agenda item 4 and 5 in private to take consideration of our draft reports on its inquiry into foreign languages and primary skills and future meetings in private. Is members agreed? Yep, thank you very much. Agenda item 2 is consideration of the latest edition of the Brussels Bulletin, and you'll see that we have another comprehensive Brussels Bulletin from Scotland Europa. So if I could have comments and questions from members, appreciate that, thank you. Rod.
Just kick off with the subject of the bees. I noticed that there's the European Bee Week coming up or anything. I wondered whether there was any kind of similar initiative in the member states. This European Week of Bees and Pollination is being held in Brussels. Is there anything in member states? It's a kind of question. Very shortly.
Yeah, we can find out for you. Yeah.
I think a very good point, because I think in future we might want to consider inviting people from Brussels to Edinburgh, not only just to participate in our meeting, but also hear some of our areas of interest in which they could perhaps help us in and guide us in. I think it would be a mutual benefit for all. Perhaps you can extend an invitation to Brussels to consider that in future years to come.
Are you talking about general items or specific items?
Well, I mean, just looking back on the fishery difficulties that we faced and the challenges we faced, and they went on for rather a long time, and we're still not 100% satisfied. And I think it'd be a good rehearsal for us to have with them to explain to them our concerns firsthand rather than secondhand. And it might be an idea for us to extend an invitation.
I think that's a good idea. If we've got specific concerns, I think we should start there first and see where we go with that. We've obviously got some visitors coming to committee in the autumn talking about EU priorities, so that'll maybe give us a framework for where we want to go. But certainly the particular issues that affect Scotland, I think you've got a good point noted.
It may also be an idea that once we have the draft white paper, it may be an idea for us to go through that to see what our priorities would be, and then try to target some of those priorities and in fact engage with people sooner rather than later in terms of dealing with some of those priorities.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's noted. Thank you. Willie.
Convener, can I bring to your attention the item there on page 1, the Atlantic Action Plan? This came up in my other capacity as a member of the British Irish Parliamentary Assembly, where the members there were proposing that we engage more directly on this. I'm not totally familiar with it, but it seems to have some potential for us here in Scotland. It talks about the blue economy, for example, and all the possibilities that are there for us to develop economies that border the Atlantic Ocean. I note, Convener, that it describes in page 3 there, in the middle of page 3, that partnership agreements are due to be finalised by the end of 2013. Now, my question, I suppose, for us is it the Scottish Government that engages with this, or is it the UK Government? And I think it would be obliged to the clerks if we could find that out, to make sure that if we can play a part in this, then we do that.
Yeah, we can certainly find that out and raise it with appropriate people. Some of the things that are obviously one of the main issues within that is Horizon 2020, which is something this committee's taken a very active interest in. So there's key hooks into the partnership agreements I think are very, very relevant to the work of this committee. Yeah. Claire.
I just wanted to highlight the education and youth section and the indication that there should be European funding for programmes which support mobility and exchange in skills and development. And this is targeted at disadvantaged backgrounds, and I think that it's quite an interesting opportunity perhaps for some of our further education colleges to get further involved in some of the exchange programmes that we're doing. And obviously we're looking at widening access agenda in the post-16 education bill, so I think this is a really interesting development. I think we should keep an eye on how that comes forward.
Absolutely. I think I've highlighted that as one of the interests I've got as well. And as far as I think we should find out an update from the UK government on the Youth Guarantee Scheme, because I believe they've yet to still sign up to the Youth Guarantee Scheme, the UK government. So it'd be good to know where that's sitting and whether there's advances being made, progress being made there. So if we could do that, yeah, committee happy to do that. Raise it, yeah, okay. Jamie,
I think it's there's a bit of ambiguous stuff where it says a key area of contention is discards of unwanted fish. And then it says Sweden was the only member state that called for an outright ban on discards. But the European Parliament wants the ban introduced immediately. Well, presumably the Swedish members don't. I mean, I don't really understand that paragraph.
Katie's just said to me that it's the Swedish Commission's position, not their MEPs. I think, is that the council? Yeah, the council. Sorry.
Well, wait a minute. It's not. It's the European Parliament wants the ban.
Yeah.
That's the Parliament, not the Commissioners.
It's the Swedish position. It's the Swedish position in the council.
Oh, the Swedish position's on the council.
Yeah.
Well, the
European
Swedish
Parliament want the ban, but the Swedish position in the council is that they're not convinced.
And what about the Swedish MEPs?
I'm not sure, but we can certainly ask Scotland Europa to update us on that one, eh?
I just think it's rather
Clarify
ambiguous. The other point is about the Atlantic Plan. It doesn't sound, where it says here that the strategy will rely on the voluntary implementation by the member states. It doesn't sound like a sort of thing that's going to have very much teeth somehow to me.
Yeah.
This one.
It does have access to European structural funds, so I would imagine that there'll be considerable interest in getting a slice of whatever's possible, Jamie.
Yeah,
and,
the blue economy.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, sorry, I just thought I'd make those points because I think if I could just... it is getting, this paper seems to me to be getting a bit looser. It's not as tight as it was.
Okay. That's good feedback. We can certainly ensure that's fed back to the authors and get some of that tightened up a bit. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The final sentence in that section is the action plan will now be subject to endorsement by the European Parliament and Council. So I would suspect, although it's voluntary, there'll be a sign-up agreement. And as much as Willie has suggested, if there's funding at the back of it, people will be keen to be engaged with it, yeah. Okay. Rod, did you want to come in?
No, to be clarified with Katie's comments.
Oh, right, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Willie, sorry, hands up.
It was just on another matter on the digital agenda,
Yeah.
convener. It was just to draw our committee's attention to the comments on page 7 under the heading digital agenda there. That you can see that there's a proposal to move towards a single telecoms market in Europe that could ultimately see the end to roaming charges, which I'm sure will be very welcome for consumers throughout Europe. Whether this ultimately leads us down the road of a single broadcasting market, I very much doubt. But I think that's a step in the right direction there, because it's one of the most common complaints that I'm sure members hear when they move from country to country about roaming charges. There's been quite a bit of work done, convener, in the past few years within Europe on this matter, but that would really help to boost economies in Europe, I think, if there's a telecoms market that has no roaming charges throughout the Union.
Thank you. Hanzala?
Thank you, Chair. It was just in terms of the financial framework, and I think we really need to keep a very close eye on that, because we are aware that there are opportunities there to have got to, and we also in our deliberations and our, some of the witnesses that we had were actually surprised that there was monies left over nearly every year in the European Union, and not all monies are actually applied for, and therefore I think there's opportunities that if we want to make sure that we are a major player in those opportunities, we really need to have someone looking at this specifically for us, so that we can then circulate that information to organizations who would be eligible to apply. Now, it would be helpful if we could maybe do that sooner rather than later, so that we've got support in place for organizations, so that we can be of some support to them.
Okay, I see that there was a further round of trialogues on the 28th of May, which is two days ago. I think maybe if we can get an update from Scotland Europa on what happened at those meetings, and we might, because the Irish Presidency is really pushing for this to be resolved, and their time is quickly running out because they demit office on the 30th of June. So I think they're really pushing to get this resolved before.
This is exactly the reason why, Chair, I'm suggesting that perhaps we get our skates on and are in place and ready for it.
Yeah. Why can we get an update then, a detailed update from Scotland Europa on the meetings from the 28th? Yeah. Claire.
Yeah, it was just a request for some further information, if possible. Maybe Spice would be able to do this for us in the section on renewables. Obviously, it talks about the member state positions in the Brussels Bulletin, which is perfectly reasonable, but I would be quite interested in actually getting a breakdown of Scotland's position and the rest of the UK, in terms, given that we have very, very strong renewables targets within Scotland, and it would be interesting to see, I think, the further detail on that.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting, because the EU set a target of 20%, and I think Scotland's already hitting above that. So it would be interesting to see just how well we're doing against that target, yeah. Willie.
Convener, my last contribution to this is in the upcoming events and meetings section on page 10 there. You'll notice that there's some kind of digital agenda assembly planned for Dublin in June 19th of this month. It would be useful if somehow we could get the output from that, whatever the thinking is going on, because we've mentioned a number of issues at the committee on the digital agenda, broadband and so on, and the possible cut in budgets to support broadband and infrastructure throughout Europe. So something useful for us might come out of that, and it would be helpful to hear what it is. Thanks.
To do that, eh? Get some more information. Content with the Brussels Bulletin? Content to pass it on to relevant committees for their consideration? Yep, thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 3, which is EU structural funds. And you will see in your papers a letter from the Deputy First Minister. You'll know the Scottish Government agreed to update us around every 6 months on the progress of European structural funds, and the letters there from the Deputy First Minister. So comments and questions?
I can only just repeat what I've already said. I think that would encapsulate all our previous difficulties, and I think we can overcome those. I think it's quite important that we engage in the fullest way as we possibly can, and I think even if we just did that, that would go a long way in making sure that we address many of the issues that we've not been able to do historically. So I'm looking forward to that support being put in place.
Claire.
I'll just make the comment that I think the Scottish Government have negotiated a good position within the UK in this, but note that things can't be finalised until the budget negotiations are finalised, so much is dependent on that, I think. We should note that.
Any more comments? Willie?
My attention was drawn to the comment by the Deputy First Minister at the bottom of page 4 there on the Youth Employment Initiative that might open up a possibility for us to tackle high levels of youth unemployment in South West Scotland, which I would be very grateful for if we do something there. So just to keep a watching eye on how that may develop for us as a committee.
Any more?
Yeah. These comments on that youth employment initiative, so just to try and ensure that we get kind of enough information to be able to monitor that as a committee. So if we perhaps relay that back to the Scottish Government.
Do that. Okay, happy to note the letter. Any other action apart from Rod's suggestion? No, contented bunch this morning. Okay, thank you very much. And we are moving on to agenda item 4, which we have agreed to take in private. Thank you.